Have you ever felt just completely stuck after a relationship? Where you're just replaying moments over and over in your head, trying to figure out what went wrong? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really powerful personal story that helps unravel why that happens. We're going to look at the journey from being trapped by the past to finally discovering how to build a truly whole, healthy connection. And it all starts from within. So, this whole journey begins with something our source calls the trauma loop. And honestly, it's a feeling I think a lot of us can recognize, that overwhelming sensation of being completely stuck. Mentally and emotionally, just spinning your wheels. And this is way more than just having a bad memory. Like the quote says, it's a kind of mental paralysis. Your mind just gets locked into this endless cycle, replaying these really distressing events on a loop, and you feel absolutely powerless to make it stop. Yeah, and look at the kind of thoughts that are on repeat. These aren't productive, right? This obsessive what-if game is a huge symptom of being stuck. And as our source discovered, this symptom wasn't just random. It was actually a blinking red light, a clear signal pointing directly back to a trauma in the past. Okay, so if the trauma loop was the symptom, then what was the actual cause? Well, for our source, digging into that led right back to a past relationship. And it was one that, looking back, wasn't built on love at all. It was built on something way more destructive, a pathological bond. The technical term for this is trauma bonding. It's this incredibly powerful connection that gets forged in a chaotic cycle of pain and then temporary relief. And this creates this super strong attachment that feels so much like love, but as we're about to see, it's actually a lot closer to an addiction. And here's the breakdown of exactly how it works. First, you have the conflict. Then comes the reconciliation, all the apologies, the promises that things will be different. That leads to that amazing, calm honeymoon phase where everything feels perfect. But it's always temporary. The tension builds back up, something triggers it, and the cycle starts all over again. It's the roller coaster itself, the highs and the lows, that creates the addiction and keeps people completely hooked. So if this whole cycle isn't actually built on love, what in the world is holding it together? What's the engine that's driving this pathological bond? Well, the answer, it turns out, is fear. And here is the absolute core insight. The main emotion holding these two people together wasn't affection. It was this deep, mutual fear. Each person was acting out of their own private terror, and those fears became the very chains that locked them together. This comparison just shows the dynamic perfectly. On one side, you have this deep internal fear of being abandoned, and on the other, you have this external fear of missing out, FOMO, of losing what he saw as a rare prize. They're two totally different fears, right? But they fed into each other, creating the perfect storm for this really unhealthy connection. And this brings us to the turning point. Years later, an interaction with someone completely new provided this stark contrast. It was a moment of total clarity that showed what a healthy dynamic, one built on clear boundaries, actually looks and feels like. When she reflected on that toxic relationship, the idea of just leaving, it felt impossible. As she admits, I didn't know how to cut things off. It wasn't about still being in love. It was about this deep sense of powerlessness, just not having the tools or the strength to make that final, decisive break. But then she met someone who, as soon as he realized they just weren't compatible, was able to make a decision and end things, quickly and cleanly. And it wasn't about being cold or cruel. It was about being clear and respecting both his time and her time and their well-being. And that experience really shined a light on what healthy boundaries actually are. And here's the key. They are a learnable skill. It's the ability to see things for what they are, make a choice that protects your own well-being, and refuse to let fear or anxiety hijack the whole process. Ultimately, it's a form of self-respect that is just fundamental to your mental health. So this powerful contrast, between the toxic past and this new healthy present, it led to the ultimate breakthrough, the core principle for building any truly healthy relationship. And this is it. This is the central lesson. You simply cannot build a whole, stable relationship from two incomplete halves. When two people come together, and each one is hoping the other will fill their empty spaces or somehow complete them, well, that is just a recipe for a really painful codependency. So the goal isn't to find your other half.
The real goal is to become a whole person on your own first. And as you can see here, that means having a stable inner life, your own goals, your own passions, strong friendships, basically a sense of self that doesn't rely on a partner for its core stability. And here is the beautiful result of all that work. When two whole individuals get together, the relationship enhances both of their lives. It's a true partnership, not a rescue mission. And because their stability comes from within themselves, if the relationship ends, yeah, it's painful, of course, but it isn't a life-shattering collapse. And that brings us to the final question, one for you to think about. In your own relationships, what's the real driving force? Is it love or is it fear? Honestly, understanding the answer to that question is the first and maybe the most powerful step you can take toward building connections that are truly whole.